thanks so much for doing this.
It's my pleasure.
Really appreciate it. And
I'm sorry it took this long to connect.
no, oh, it's no problem. I'm sure that everybody really wants to hear about Alan Holdsworth and your dealings with him and the tours and the creative thing that goes on there. But before we got to that, I was actually thinking I'm interested in your influences, like what your bass playing influences are.
It's pretty eclectic, because I grew up in a house that had a lot of music playing all the time. Um, I had an older brother who was almost 11 years older than me. So when I was a kid, he would relish in bringing me into his room. He was, like say I would be 7, right? And he's
Yeah.
18. He's 18 years old. So he'd bring me into his room and he'd play me stuff just to see what my reaction would be. So he was playing me like Coltrane and Thelonious Monk and Eric Dolphy records.
Oh,
And
Eric
then,
Dolphin.
yeah, and then he was playing me like Prokofiev and, Bartok, all kinds of classical music. And for a 7-year-old kid, that's a little bit, that's a lot to digest.
I found a common thread amongst all these fusion players. Holdsworth, you, or any people that are, like me, that are doing it, or just whoever. Uh, all of us have been exposed to 20th century classical music
Yeah,
at an early age. Like
at a young age.
it's
Yeah.
the common thing. It seems like even Zappa and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I
Um,
have my older brother to thank for that. And of course, I wasn't upset about any of it. I was kind of interested in it, but it was way above my head. It was way over my head. So, I would leave his room kind of completely perplexed, but interested in what I just heard. And this went on for years, because it was even before that. Like when I was 6, he was 17. So he was already exposed to all this. He was going to jazz clubs even. He was kind of a bohemian type. And we grew up in New York. So there was, big jazz scene.
oh,
There was you know, Lincoln Center. So, he was going to concerts, seeing all this live, which to this day I envy that, that he saw Coltrane live, he saw Eric Dolphy live, Thelonious Monk, he saw these people live in clubs. And by the time I really kind of understood what was going on with all that, they were already gone, they'd passed away.
yeah.
But I was checking out all kinds of other stuff. So, I was checking out Mahavishnu Orchestra and
Oh, yeah.
Jimi Hendrix and Frank Zappa, as you mentioned. I saw him play a bunch of times. Um, Jethro Tull, you know, James Taylor, even Beatles. So I had all that music going on when I was starting to grasp the idea of being a musician and in that sense. But I was interested in music even when I was 6 years old. I mean, when I was 7, which I mentioned before, that's back in the mid to late 50s. Um, and music was still being offered in public school. So I'll
Mm.
I'll never forget sitting in a classroom when I was 7 years old. I guess I was in first or second grade, and some dude walked in the room and said, "Okay, whoever wants to play an instrument, raise their hand." So of course I raised my hand, and I ended up getting a trumpet. So I started learning how to play trumpet when I was 7. and they even organized a little jazz band. So, they played little tunes, and I learned how to read music, and that all that was part of hanging with my brother, and then there were my parents who listened to everything from Count Basie and Duke Ellington, uh, even like you know what you might say kind of square kind of things like Mantovani and you know um, I grew up hearing Harry James and Al Hurt and but then on the other side of the coin, you know they grew up in Puerto Rico, so I ended up hearing
Oh,
all this incredible music by like Tito Puente and Celia Cruz and Mongo Santa Maria and Ray Barretto. All that stuff was playing in the house. And then my mom's sister ended up moving in with us. She was younger than my mom by like, I think 10 years younger than my mom. But, so she was in her I think she was probably in her early 30s when she moved in with us. She came in from Puerto Rico, and her music palette was like Jerry Vale and John
oh,
Mathis, and you
all of
know,
the mobster music,
yeah, all
basically.
that kind of stuff. Robert Goulet and Andy Williams, and Frank Sinatra, and all that kind of stuff. So I was hearing all that music plus all the stuff that my peers were listening to. So that was everything from the Rolling Stones to, um, later on to like Herbie Hancock and the Headhunters. So
But what about like your actual like bass playing influences? Would you say like who would you say is like the top few people that are like like they were like your Eddie Van Halen or something some
right.
for so many people that play guitar.
Well, I got really into all the prog rock guys, like Glenn Cornick, that is.
I'm not
You're
it's
not familiar with it. He was the bass player in Jethro Tull,
oh
original.
okay.
Yeah, and they were playing some very interesting music. Chris Squire, that everybody knows who that
Yes.
is.
Yes.
Yeah, so those guys, I was listening to those guys. Even Jack Bruce, for what it's worth. I'm never particularly fond of his sound, but he played great. So
So those kind of interesting is that so you're really coming into it from the rock side of things, like the rock fusion
yeah,
side. Whereas a lot of people of like your stature, they come into it, they're like all upright.
right.
You know what I mean? Like they and
And
like
I
they're
listened I'm sorry to interrupt, but I did listen to some of that too. I mean, I was aware of Ron Carter and Cecil McBee and Richard Davis and
yeah.
Sam Jones, Jimmy Garrison. So I knew who all those guys were, but I wasn't that uh, connected to that music yet. That was in my teens. So in my teen years, it was more the prog rock and pop, even pop rock. I mean, I even liked Peter Cetera.
Oh, but everybody likes Peter Cetera.
Yeah. And so, he was a good bass player. He was also a very good singer. So, uh, there was all that, and all the bass players that played with Frank Zappa, and
Oh yeah.
you know, even though I
Yep.
wasn't totally into Noel Redding because he wasn't really even a bass player, he was a guitar player who happened to audition on bass and got the gig with Jimi Hendrix. But of course, I like Billy Cox, who came later with the Hendrix experience, and then everything else you can possibly imagine. Listen to even organ bass. I got kind of
Mm.
interested in that.
Jimmy Smith.
Listening, yeah, Jimmy Smith, Jimmy McGriff, and Was it Larry Young? You know,
Well, see, this is interesting for a lot of people, probably because you're one of these people that like kind of like create helped create the whole jazz, modern jazz bass fusion thing. I mean,
that's very kind of you, but I never think about that. But I guess I got some voice in there early on in the 80s when I started recording with the Yellow Jackets. But uh, you mentioned or you asked me about top influences. So one of the real top ones was James Jamerson Sr. because I listened to a ton of Motown music and
it's like
I love the bass on all those records. So
everybody's influenced by him, like Victor Wooten and you, and like
of course.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When are they going to talk about Alan Holdsworth? You know,
Well, and then on top of that, then there's even more. Then there's guys like Larry Graham, you know. I saw Sly Stone at least 5 times in early 70s, late 60s. You know, yeah, Dave Holland, who played both
oh,
electric and upper. I mean, I could probably name a few hundred bass players that influenced me or that I've listened to. Um, and then all the music that was connected to them, you know. So, Anthony Jackson, is another one, was a big influence in how I heard the bass uh, performing in an ensemble. So I just kept the door open and I just kept trying to find more new stuff. I even, my last year in high school, my senior year, I got a part-time job in a record shop. So that was an interesting thing to have because and back then, this is 1969, 1970-ish. Um, vinyl records were $3.
oh, fuck.
You could buy a record for $3. And because I was an employee of this record shop, which was called Sam Goody,
Oh, I remember that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a chain. So there was a Sam Goody in my hometown on Long Island, and I got a part-time job there. And so because you were an employee, you got half price. So I could buy a vinyl record for $1.50. So when paycheck time came on Friday and I got my paycheck, it was like something like $96 or something once they took taxes out.
Oh,
But I would probably spend at least half of that $96 on vinyl records. I just go through all the bins and find stuff that looked interesting and bring it all home and listen to it all and even
and
practice to some of it.
I'm like picking up psychic vibrations that a seminal moment was Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Well, that was insane
Uh,
because I got turned on to that through a friend of mine, and at that time, I believe, yeah, I was living in San Francisco at that time, um, and I came back to New York to visit my parents, and a friend of mine called me and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm just hanging out with my parents, but what's up?" And he said, um, John McLaughlin's playing in this club that was near where I grew up in Huntington, Long Island. It was a place called my father's place. It was in Roslyn, a couple of towns over. They said, "I want to go check it out." Yeah, let's go. So we went. We didn't know. We thought it was John McLaughlin. We didn't know. And the last time I had seen John McLaughlin, he was playing guitar with Miles Davis.
right.
So, that's when I got into like Bitches Brew and that kind of stuff. But so that's what I thought I was going to see. And we walk into this place, there's only 10 people in there. It's like hardly anybody in there. So we sat down and then these guys walked out. They said, "Ladies and gentlemen," and I said, "What the hell is Mahavishnu Orchestra?" So they announced Mahavishnu Orchestra, and there's John McLaughlin now with a short haircut and a double neck guitar, all dressed in white.
Looking
And
like a cult leader.
yeah, that's what it kind of it's going like, what is going on here? And this guy, this burly guy on drums, and guy with really long hair, which I actually recognized because I had seen a group not long before that uh, called The Flock. Uh,
Hmm.
and so um, uh, Jerry Goodman, the violinist, was the leader of this group called The Flock, which was kind of a progressive rock band. And I'd seen him at a concert in like Queens, New York, somewhere. So I saw that guy and I went, I've seen that guy before in a band, and I'm going like, what's he doing with John McLaughlin and this drummer, and then these other two guys that were kind of straight ahead looking. They didn't look like I mean, I couldn't even figure out what they were doing up there. It's just Jan Hammer
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and yeah, and of course um, the bass player, which I'm now spacing out on his
I
name.
would always do the same thing for some reason.
Yeah, but and I who I know, and unfortunately he's passed away since uh, some years ago. But there they were, and then of course uh, John McLaughlin got into some kind of prayer. He wanted to do a prayer for his guru,
Oh,
and so that
we.
was kind of wild.
I went to a temple when I lived in Nashville. I went to an Indian temple, and we went to see Shri Chinmoy,
Oh, right,
which
yeah.
was which is the John McLaughlin's like guru.
Well, it was at one time, yeah.
And there was like Bob Weir from the Grateful Dead was sitting right in front of me, the right
Yeah,
side.
he's no longer involved in that cult or whatever, the religious.
Well, I wasn't just for the Indian people that might see this. I wasn't referring to the Hindu temple in a negative way. It's just like he kind of
No,
has that.
no, and yeah, there's absolutely no negativity whatsoever. You know,
Yeah.
I was, uh, I was into all kinds of things myself.
But anytime I see somebody in a totally white outfit like that, I'm with that look, it's definitely cult leader type status kind of
Yeah.
thing going on. But
And anyway, the bass player in Mahavishnu was Rick Laird.
Rick
So
Laird,
yeah.
yeah, I always think of Scottish and then I forget it.
Yeah.
Um,
So
um,
they blew my mind, and I never heard music like that ever in my life.
I
And
think they're still blowing people's minds.
yeah, yeah, and I walked out of that club completely stunned and went to the record shop that I used to work in and tried to find their record, and it hadn't even been released yet. That was the Intermounting Flame.
Oh yeah. So how many awards would you say that you've won at this point? Grammys and things like this.
Well, I've won 4 Grammys and I've been nominated, I don't know, I think it's like 22 times been nominated for Grammys. And one of the 4 Grammy awards that I won was with Jeff Lorber, and the other 3 were with the Yellow Jackets.
I was listening to Lorber, the trio, I was watching a show the other day.
Oh,
And I kind of like that. Like it reminds me of what's that guy's name, Bob James, a little bit. He kind of does some
it's
slick.
got that vibe.
Yeah, a little bit of that. It's kind of
It's
like
a little funkier in a
yeah, it's
way.
like it's jazz fusion on slightly on the side of the smooth jazz territory a
Right.
little bit. Which is cool.
Yeah, and Jeff's from Philly, so he's got that Philly R&B thread
Yeah.
in his background.
I wasn't
And
aware so many of these guys, these LA guys, were all East Coast guys.
a lot of us are,
I
yeah,
wasn't I wasn't aware of that.
yeah. There's a
What?
lot of East Coast here in California.
So, yeah. So what kind of interesting information do you have to share about like Holdsworth and all that? Because I have so many Holdsworth fans on my channel here, so it's I mean
Well,
that
I'm sure.
any little tidbits they'll just like a vulture they'll descend on it.
Well, I'm sure everybody knows a lot about him already, but as far as my experience uh, playing with him, he was just a really great guy. Had a great sense of humor and was brilliant. Was a brilliant thinker.
Yeah.
Um, and even I know people must know that he was on some level an inventor. Um, he even invented his own way of writing music. He, his charts were not conventional.
Oh.
They had completely different kind of notation,
Hmm.
and how he viewed, like, say, a solo section, and how he wrote out maybe like a little crib note about the solo section, and how he would approach it. So, and I believe wholeheartedly that he had a lot of influence from the violin,
Mm.
because that was an instrument that he played in his younger years, and I could hear the violin influence in even his sound,
Well,
you
when
know,
I the sound, but when I watch his the way he fingers stuff, he four fingers all the time, like a
all the
violinist.
time.
Because the
Hmm.
fifths tuning, the fifths, the
And a
literally,
lot of a lot of hammer-ons.
yeah, oh yeah,
So
yeah.
that's all violin, because violin's all hammer-ons, but the strings are being bowed, you know. That's the difference. So, and even the way he set up, uh, the sound, his solo sound had some slight distortion to it, but that created almost like when he did the hammer-on stuff, it created almost like rosin, to my ear. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. It's very mid-rangey, thick, kind of Eric Johnson thing. Except of course, it's like Eric Johnson meets a space alien or something. Like kind of
I,
a dichotomy versus the vocabulary versus like blues rock vocabulary. Like his whole that's the most interesting thing too, is like just harmonically people don't realize even all of the great jazz and jazz fusion pianists that have come along, they don't have the compositional language harmonically that Alan had. Like he was
no,
really very very unique in that regard. Like it's so dense and complicated that people just can't even play the charts. Like very few people do even mess with it. You know.
he had a very unique voice, and it definitely, you could see if you followed his career from like early on. I don't even have some of the really early stuff that he did, but I got turned on to him when he was in a group called Soft Machine.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And even at that point, he didn't sound like he did later on. He
yeah. Oh
developed
yeah.
he developed a whole nother level of harmonic sense as time went on.
I think it kind of started in the UK. Like
Yeah,
that's
like
like
that band. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm. Well, I just, I was constantly reminded of, his greatness whenever we would stand on stage and play. I was humbled by the experience, and but at the same time, I was not intimidated by it. I wanted to know more about what he did, but he was not easily uh, coerced into talking about what he what he thought about music, and how how he put music together because he basically felt that he wasn't very good.
I've seen this all the time. Like he's just very humble. His approach to it. I think it's like
Yeah,
a psychological saying. It's like as long as you tell yourself that, even if you kind of don't come up to your expectation, you're kind of like, that was what I
yeah,
thought
it's
would happen.
okay, but it's
I
not
thought that would
great.
happen. Like versus getting really in your own head, maybe, and like, I am quite great or whatever, and then like, oh, well, I don't know, but
Yeah,
who's
like
to know though what was in his head, like, I mean,
he would basically feel like he played horribly every night, and that wasn't true. Every night he played incredibly amazing. He left people completely in awe after every concert. But his opinion was that he wasn't very good, and I think that stems from his early childhood. Something may have influenced that, unfortunately for him. But but that's how he was, and so what that resulted in was him being extremely humble about his his musicianship and his music, what he composed. He was
yeah,
extreme, like almost over the top, extreme humbleness, and so you got to take your hat off to that. Somebody that's that incredible to, just kind of be on a very down to earth personality, have to
oh
have a
yeah,
down to earth personality, and not
totally, yeah.
be all egoed out like I'm the greatest or anything. Not to take anything from away from Muhammad Ali, because he would say he was the greatest, but that was a different kind of situation he was
No,
in.
that's I did well. That's the thing about music and competition. The music Olympics, as I like to call it, is that
Yeah,
it really does destroy things after a while. Like
it can.
it's
Yeah.
the guitar. Us guitar players are a heathenish bunch with the way we are. Like not me. I'm one of the good ones. But I'm
Oh,
saying,
you sound great, by the way. I should
well,
interject. Yeah.
I appreciate
Yeah.
every stitch of comment that
And I'll keep
are
you in touch with this project that I got you to play on a tune. And
yeah.
it's getting close to being complete.
I
It's
I'm
been
like
quite
I
a
can't wait to
challenge.
hear this. I'm like I want to listen to the whole album. It's like my
Yeah, well, I'll send you the whole thing. It's
I want
it's
to
pretty wild. That's all I
I want
can
to
tell.
hear like Vinnie Colaiuta's
He's
track
on
and
the
all that.
track. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
Um
track you played on has William Kennedy. So
oh nice.
yeah.
And it's of course Yellow Jackets.
Yeah. Although, well, let's see. Wait a minute. What did you play?
Oh no. I played on it was this German guy.
That's right. That's right. That's Joost
Jost Nickel.
Nickel.
Yeah.
Joost Nickel, who's very good. I've done
Yost.
a lot of shows with him in Europe, and he's a great drummer, and a really good guy.
Um, and let's see here. What was I going to talk? Oh, so the upside down bass thing, right?
Oh God, yeah.
I know everybody asks you this. This is
Of
horrible.
course.
Um, and I mean, I'm kind of a student of the fretboard myself, so like I'm thinking about it polyphonically and things like that. And
Right.
I'm looking at the way you play, and I'm thinking about arpeggios. I'm thinking about like arcs of lines going up and down, and like how it would change physiologically. And I'm thinking, what would work better? What would work worse? What would be the effect of doing this?
Well,
Tonally.
it's a challenge. It's been a challenge, and it has been a motivating factor though, because knowing that I play unconventionally, I always feel like I need to spend even more time than normal to try to work things out, practice, and get really things
Well,
together.
well, I mean, I'm just listening to you play. I mean, you have like a ton of like jazz chops, what I would call jazz chops, where it's like,
Uh,
like you're playing very accurately, rhythmically with these figures and things. It kind of reminds me, you kind of remind me of like Gary Willis
oh, well, I'm a big fan of his. So
mixed a little bit with like somebody else or a few other people, but like it's your own thing, you know what I mean? But like all of us, you can take apart
we
their own
listen to
style.
everybody
Yeah,
and
right.
then
And be
bring it
like,
all
oh,
in.
Holdsworth sounds like this and this and this, or
Right.
But
Of course, I listen to Jimmy Johnson a lot too. So
oh, Jimmy Johnson,
yeah,
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 yeah. But like some of those solos, though, are like just very interesting to me from a rhythmic standpoint, because like a lot of times, people are just like, time for the solo. I'm gonna slap everything, and then like
I got
play,
to do it.
you know, like like, and it's cool. Don't get me wrong, but like
Yeah,
I come
there's
from
something
that
to that.
mindset where I want to hear like, that Gary, like your thing, Gary Willis, or some of these other people like Tom Kennedy, like
Yeah, Tom Kennedy's
like,
great.
and then there's other people that are just like, well, Hadrian Farad, of course,
He's amazing. I'm a big
yeah.
fan of his too. Yeah.
And Hadrian knows, like, I don't know what the deal is with him. Like, I don't
I've
even some of
actually
the,
I've actually hired him to play on some things, and it's just wonderful to work with. So,
yeah.
and he's
Um,
got an amazing sense. I think John McLaughlin told me that because he worked with Hadrian briefly, and he says, "Yeah, I think Hadrian needs to get a hobby."
oh, is he that obsessed with bass?
He's obsessed, yeah, but that's okay. It shows. He plays incredibly well, so
Well, we're
he's
not talking about
phenomenal.
Hadrian here because you're on it, right?
Well, it's okay. It's all good. And look, I listen to all these guys and I try to study and practice on my own. And for me, my bottom line was, we talked about influences before. So I was always more interested in the groove, and just trying to make things feel good. And the soloing thing came later. And, I lived in a house for 8 years. Well, actually, it was a duplex for 8 years, and upstairs lived a guitar player named Robin Ford.
Oh,
Yeah, and I lived downstairs, so I got a lot of influence from him. Just the way he phrased things and his blues chops. So that's kind of where I ended up kind of going in that direction as a more
hmm.
blues player, I think, than a bebopper.
Well, I feel like though a lot of the fusion cats have kind of like taken the blues and the pentatonic chops and then chromaticized them and turned them
Right.
in, turned them into a
I'm
whole new language kind of
I'm
thing.
studying some of that now myself. I
Um,
mean, because after a while you just kind of look at your playing and you go like, okay, what else can I do? So I'm in that kind of mode right now, and I've been watching a lot of videos and writing down some things to work on, and I'm practicing different little bebopish kind of things. I've been listening to everything from Wynton Marsalis to Pat Metheny, and
oh,
and just kind of try to eat some of that up and digest it in some way to even come up with some of my own little language. Uh,
I like going back and checking out some Michael Brecker every once in a while,
it's
just to get
ridiculous.
my
Yeah,
my
that's
ear in that zone. But that's just the thing. Let's see, what else was I going to talk
I'll send
about?
you something too. There's a guy that's been studying kind of like Michael Brecker-ish kind of things,
Is it
and
Chris Potter?
he has a little podcast. So
Oh,
I'll send you something. You can check it
cool.
out.
Yeah, there's all those kind of guys. Chris Potter,
He's fantastic.
yeah.
Bob Franceschini, even and Bob Mintzer.
Oh yeah. Well, Bob Menzer, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess maybe the last thing, maybe we should just like talk about the Yellow Jackets a little bit.
Okay.
'Cause, actually, that's a band that I I kind of discovered you through them before I knew you played with Holdsworth, and then I was like, oh, he's playing with Holdsworth too.
Yeah.
Because like I like I like Russell Ferrante's whole
Oh,
trick,
he's incredible.
and
Yeah.
then Bob Menser's got the right. It's kind of like fusion train or something, kind of a thing he's got going on.
Yeah, and he played in Jocko's Word of Mouth.
Oh yeah, yeah. And there's the
And I
connection.
studied for briefly, very briefly, I studied with Jocko. So that was an explosion of kind of knowledge and thoughts and
Well, okay.
ideas.
And then, now that you've said that, what did he show you? Because
Oh, well, I mean, we talked a lot about Bach
mm,
and uh, and then of course we even talked about Francis Rocco Prestia, who's kind of a Bachish kind of funk bass player in a way, the way he approached his bass lines. But
huh.
Jocko showed me a lot about some exercises to strengthen my pinky because at the time my pinky was good. But I even told that's one of the things I asked him about. I said, look, I'm trying to get my pinky to work as good as the other three fingers on my hand for fingering, because I use my right hand to finger. And he gave me some great ideas and great things to work on. Um, one of which I kind of knew about it, but he kind of put it in a language that I understood more clearly, and he called it a double diminished scale. So it's
Hmm.
basically superimposing two diminished scales, one next to each other. So there's a half step, whole step, half step, all in one.
Oh yeah. Well,
And then,
in the books that I when I learned all that, it was just like, oh, this is diminished scale, and you got half whole, and then whole half, and then
right,
you
right.
know.
So he
So
showed me these patterns with using that kind of scale, which is demanding on your pinky, if you really
oh
want
yeah. I
to.
don't even do that. I just slide sometimes. I'll just be like, slide, 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 slide.
And then he showed me these patterns in fourths that were on alternate strings that also extends the pinky to capture that, so to be able to play unison notes on two strings.
Oh, damn.
Okay.
Now, that's hard on bass.
Yeah, it's pretty hard because the bass is a big neck, but if you can do it, and I can now thanks to Jocko, then that gives you a whole range of harmonic information all